Sunday morning. You're making the kid a sandwich, or you're standing at the counter with a spoon and no plan to admit it. You bought the good one this time. The jar that says natural, the one with the little leaf, the one that cost $1 more because you were trying. And somewhere in the back of your mind, a small voice asks the question you never quite finish. If this is the healthy one, why does it taste exactly like the one I was avoiding? You didn't do anything wrong. You reached for the word on the front of the jar, which is precisely what that word was designed to make you do. The jar in your hand may not legally be peanut butter at all. On the back, in letters smaller than the brand, the government made them tell you what it really is. Most people have never once read it. We checked 10 peanut butter brands: Jif, Skippy, Peter Pan, Great Value, Kroger, and the natural versions everyone reaches for when they're feeling good about themselves. We didn't taste a single one, we read, because the whole story is printed on the back in plain English and a court fought for 12 years to make sure it was true. 7 of the 10 are not what the front says they are. 3 of them are the real thing. And the 3 that pass are the ones nobody brags about buying. 2 things to hold on to. Somewhere on this list, there's a jar with the word natural on the front and a very different word hidden on the back. And once you see that word, you cannot unsee it in your own pantry. And the jar that wins the whole thing? It's the one you have to stir. The one with the oil floating on top that you always thought had gone bad. Before we start, go to your kitchen right now and type the peanut butter you own into the comments. The brand on the front, and if you're feeling brave, the legal name in the small print underneath it. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which side of the law your jar landed on. 4 words are going to do all the heavy lifting tonight: standard of identity, hydrogenated, palm oil, and spread. Learn those 4, and you will never be fooled in this aisle again. Because the front of the jar is a brand. The back of the jar is a legal document, counting down the worst betrayals closest to the end. Number 7. 1 honest minute first, because that is how this channel works. Nothing here is going to hurt you. Peanut butter is one of the safest, best foods in the entire store. Protein, good fat, real value. Nobody's kid is in danger. If your family loves the jar you buy, I am not calling your lunch a mistake. This is not a fear video. The crime tonight is not poison. The crime is a swap, a quiet one, printed in the open, where a word you trust stands in front of a word they would rather you skip. Every fact in this video comes off a published label or a federal file you can pull up on your phone in the aisle. No leaks, no lab coats, just the fine print, read out loud for once. And here is the one piece of law the whole video turns on, so learn it now. There is a federal rule, a standard of identity, that says what the words peanut butter are allowed to mean. To print those 2 words, a jar has to be at least 90% peanuts. Everything else, the salt, the sugar, the oil, has to fit inside the last 10%. And any oil they add to keep it from separating has to be a hydrogenated vegetable oil. That is the deal. Miss any part of it, and the law takes the words peanut butter away from you. You have to call it something else. Remember that. You are about to watch brand after brand get the words taken away. Number 7. Walmart. Great Value Creamy. You expected the cheap one to lose. It is the dollar jar. It is Walmart. That is the whole bit. But read why it does not finish last. Because it is more interesting than the price tag. Great Value opens with dry roasted peanuts, and then, second in line, before anything else, sugar. After that, hydrogenated vegetable oil, a blend of rapeseed, cottonseed, and soybean, plus a little molasses to round it off. And this is the part that should surprise you. By the letter of the law, this actually is peanut butter. 90% peanuts, hydrogenated stabilizer, everything inside the lines. Great Value is not breaking the rule. It is just being honest about being a copy, a nearly perfect clone of the national brand, for half the money. Understand the scale of that copy. Great Value is one of the biggest food labels in the entire country by volume, stacked in thousands of stores. A recipe written once, at a desk, lands on millions of tables a week. Sugar as the second ingredient is not a quirk of one jar. It is a national default, set quietly by whoever writes the spec sheet. The verdict for your cart: Walmart isn't lying to you here. It's betting you'll assume the cheap jar is the worst one in the aisle. It isn't. The expensive jars are where the story gets ugly, because the next brand does everything Great Value does, then charges you more and adds a word to hide it. Number 6. Kroger, creamy. Kroger's jar reads almost identically. Peanuts, then sugar, then molasses, then fully hydrogenated vegetable oils, then salt. There's your second word, hydrogenated. That's the stabilizer, the ingredient doing a very specific job, stopping the oil from rising to the top so the jar looks the same on day 1 and day 90. It's why the spoon glides. The smoothness you like isn't the peanuts, it's the chemistry. But Kroger earns its spot for a different reason, and it's a quiet one. Walk 4 feet down the same shelf, in the same store, and Kroger sells another jar under its own name, Kroger Natural. And that one is just peanuts and salt, 2 ingredients. The real thing, often for pennies more. So the store already knows how to make honest peanut butter. It makes both, side by side, and lets you choose without ever telling you there's a choice to make. That's not a mistake. That's the aisle working exactly as designed. The plain jar priced to look like the compromise, the sugared one priced to feel like the default. Which brings us to the brand that practically invented the sugared default. Number 5. Skippy, creamy. Skippy is the smooth one, the classic, the jar half of America grew up on. Peanuts, sugar, hydrogenated vegetable oil, cottonseed, soybean, rapeseed, and salt. 3 grams of sugar in every 2 tablespoon serving. That doesn't sound like much until you remember what you think you're eating. Peanuts. Just peanuts. The sugar isn't there for you. It's there because a spoonful of sugar makes an industrial paste taste like a childhood, and childhood sells. None of that is illegal, and Skippy, like great value, technically keeps the words peanut butter. It stays inside the 10%. The point isn't that Skippy broke the law. The point is that the law lets the most trusted texture in the aisle be built from an additive and sweetened like a cookie, and nobody ever has to say so out loud. But hold on, because Skippy has a second jar, and this is the one you reach for when you're trying to be good. It's the one that says natural. And that jar is where the word gets taken away. Number 4. Skippy Natural. Pick up the natural jar and read the whole name. The real one, the legal one, printed right under the brand. It doesn't say peanut butter. It says peanut butter spread. There it is. That's your third word, and it's the most important word in this entire video. Spread. 6 letters the FDA forces onto the label, the moment a jar stops qualifying as the real thing. Why did Skippy Natural lose the words? Not for the sugar. It's still in there. It lost them for the 4th word, palm oil. Skippy Natural is peanuts, sugar, palm oil, and salt, and palm oil is the tell. The law says the stabilizer has to be a hydrogenated oil. Palm oil isn't hydrogenated. It's naturally saturated, which is a fancy way of saying it does the same job while breaking the same rule. So the government reaches over and quietly takes the words peanut butter off the jar. Natural, the word they chose, has no legal meaning at all. Spread, the word they were forced to print, means it didn't make the cut. And read this part slowly, because it's the whole joke in one line. That palm oil adds saturated fat the regular jar doesn't have. The natural one, the good one, the one you paid extra for, carries more saturated fat than the Skippy you were trying to quit. You reached for the leaf, and the leaf cost you. And to be fair to the palm oil for a second, because fairness is the whole point of this channel, it isn't dangerous, and it does a real job. It keeps the jar from separating so you never have to stir. That's the trade. Convenience, bought with an ingredient the law won't count as peanut butter grade. Which is fine, if that's the deal you'd choose. The problem is that nobody offered you the deal. They offered you a leaf and a word, and buried the trade on the back. So if the word natural hides a spread, what does the jar that just says simply hide? Because there's a brand that stripped its label down to almost nothing and dared you to trust it. Number 3. Jif Natural, and its cleaner-looking cousin, Jif Simply. This is the turn, because this is the one that looks like the honest upgrade. Jif Natural, peanuts, sugar, palm oil, salt, molasses. Enough peanuts to clear 90%. And it still loses the words because of that palm oil again. Same trapdoor, second brand. But watch what Jif did next. In 2026, they launched Jif Simply, and the pitch was beautiful. 3 ingredients, nothing to hide, the clean one you've been waiting for. 3 ingredients, peanuts, salt, and palm oil. They took everything off the label except the exact ingredient that makes it a spread. The front got simpler. The verdict on the back didn't move an inch. And this isn't just a word game. It follows the jar out the door. Because these products are legally spreads, several states won't let you buy them with WIC, the program for mothers and young children. The government drew a line between real peanut butter and a spread, and it drew that line hard enough that a struggling parent can be standing at the register and told no. Not because the jar is unsafe, but because the word on the back says it isn't quite the thing the front promised. 2 brands left. And they are the 2 you would have sworn, before this video started, were the safe choice. Number 2, reduced fat, Jif or Skippy. Take your pick, they play the same trick. This is the jar you buy when you're being disciplined. Read the legal name and it tells on itself before you even flip it over. Reduced fat creamy peanut butter spread, 60% peanuts. It says it right on the front, 60, not 90. So do the other 40 math with me. In a 16-ounce jar, that's more than 6 ounces of not peanuts. Corn syrup solids, sugar, and pea protein, packed in to replace the fat they pulled out. And this is what should genuinely bother you. Taking the fat out doesn't take the calories out. The fat in peanut butter is the good part, the part that fills you up. Pull it, backfill with sugar and starch, and you're left with a jar that has about the same calories, less of what satisfies you, and 40% of it isn't even peanut. You paid a premium per ounce for less peanut butter and more sugar, wearing the word reduced like a health badge. And think about who buys this jar on purpose. The person counting, the person trying, the one reading the front of the label harder than anyone else in the aisle. That's the shopper the 60% jar is built for. The most careful person on the aisle handed the emptiest jar and charged extra for the privilege. The diet jar is the least peanut on the entire shelf, which leaves one name, the one more people trust than any other, the one that spent decades telling mothers they were making the careful choice. Number 1, Jif. Choosy moms choose Jif. That's the promise. The number 1 peanut butter brand in America, the jar that made carefulness a slogan. And I want to be fair. Regular Jif keeps the words. Peanuts, sugar, molasses, fully hydrogenated vegetable oils, mono and diglycerides, salt. It clears 90%. By the letter, it's peanut butter. So why is it number 1, the biggest betrayal on the list? 2 reasons, and both are on the record. The first is the family. Every single better version of Jif, the natural, the simply, the reduced fat, is legally a spread. The brand that built its name on the careful choice makes an entire lineup of jars that don't qualify as the thing its name promises, and sells them to exactly the people trying hardest to do right. The more responsible you try to be, the further from real peanut butter Jif walks you. The second is a date. May 2022, Jif, made by the J.M. Smucker Company at a plant in Lexington, Kentucky, was recalled nationwide for salmonella. 21 people sick across 17 states, 4 hospitalized. That's the part that made the news. The part that didn't run deeper. When investigators sequenced the bacteria, it matched a sample taken from inside that same plant in 2010. The same strain, 12 years earlier. It didn't arrive in 2022. It had a return address. The most trusted name in the aisle ran a plant carrying a problem it had already met once, and the people who paid for that trust found out from a recall notice. The front of the jar is a brand. The back of the jar is a legal document. Nowhere on this shelf is that truer than at number 1. Now pause the countdown, because none of this is an accident, and the reason goes back further than any jar on this shelf. Go back to 1959. The FDA ran the numbers and found that companies had quietly cut the peanut content of peanut butter by as much as 20%, swapping in cheaper oils and pocketing the difference, all while keeping the words on the front. So the government moved to define the term, to fence off peanut butter so it had to mean something. The industry fought it, not for a year. For 12 years, all the way up to a federal appeals court, which finally fixed the line where it still sits today. 90% peanuts, or you don't get the words. That is why peanut butter is one of the only phrases in the entire grocery store with a recipe a court had to defend. And then the industry found the door. They didn't break the 90% rule. They walked around it. Call the jar a spread, and every single thing the rule forbids. More sugar, less peanut, palm oil, corn syrup solids to cut the fat, becomes legal again, instantly, no fight required. The law didn't lose. It just got a synonym walked past it. The word peanut butter took the government 12 years and a federal court to protect. The word spread took the industry one afternoon to invent. And the beauty of it, from their side, is that nobody has to lie. Every fact is printed. The word spread is right there on the jar, technically honest, legally airtight, and sized to disappear against a brand name in bold. They didn't hide the truth. They just trusted you wouldn't turn the jar over. And for 60 years, mostly, you haven't. You want to know what the same system looks like when it fails a different way? In 2007, Peter Pan, and the great value made on the very same line, poisoned more than 700 people across 47 states with salmonella. The plant had tested positive twice in 2004 and shipped anyway. Years later, the company pleaded guilty to a criminal charge and paid $11.2 million. At the time, the largest criminal fine in the history of American food safety. Then 2022, and Jif, and the strain with a 12-year memory. Different decades, same machine. The recipe gets protected by a word. The safety gets protected by speed. And speed leaves things off the label. Before we get to the jars that passed, let me kill the test you've seen 100 times online, because it's steering you exactly wrong. You've seen the videos. Oil floating on top means your peanut butter went bad. It's low quality. Throw it out. That is backwards. The layer of oil isn't a warning. It's a receipt. It's the proof that nobody added a stabilizer to hold the jar together, which means what's under it is real peanut butter doing what real peanut butter does. The jars you should actually question are the opposite ones. The ones that stay flawless and flat and smooth for a year and still whisper natural at you. That perfect, no-stir texture isn't purity. It's the palm oil. It's the very thing that took the words away. So here's how you win this aisle tonight, in 3 moves, no lab required. Move 1, the 5-second flip. Turn the jar over and find the legal name printed under the brand. If it says spread, or if it says a number like 60% peanuts, the FDA already did your homework. The jar told on itself. You just have to read the part they made small. Move 2, the 2-line rule. Real peanut butter has an ingredient list you can read in one breath. Peanuts. Maybe salt. That's the whole jar. If sugar is sitting in the top 2 ingredients, and there's a hydrogenated oil or a palm oil riding along, you're not holding a food. You're holding a formula built for a shelf. Move 3, the stir test. And I'll be honest about this one, because it isn't proof on its own. Let a new jar sit undisturbed for a week. If the oil rises, there's no stabilizer in there, and that's a good sign. If it stays dead, flat, and smooth, something is holding it together. Temperature and freshness play a role too, so don't convict a jar on the stir test alone. Pair it with the label. The label is the confession. The stir is just the tell. And while we're clearing the air, 4 quick myths, because you're going to hear them the second you share this. Myth 1, natural means healthier. It doesn't mean anything. Natural has no legal definition on this shelf, which is exactly why Skippy Natural can carry more saturated fat than the regular jar and still wear the word. Myth 2, reduced fat is the diet choice. Same calories, more sugar, 40% not peanut. It's the diet jar that isn't a diet. Myth 3, oil on top means it's spoiled. We just covered it. That's not spoilage. That's the sign you found the real one. Myth 4, and this one's important, so I'm going to be straight with you. Peanut butter is full of a toxin that's poisoning you. You may have heard about aflatoxin. It's a real thing, a mold byproduct that peanuts can carry, and at high long-term doses, it's linked to liver cancer. But here's the honest version. The FDA caps it at 20 parts per billion. Roasting knocks it down by most of what's there, and the big brands test and blend their lots to stay under the line. Is the UDOT's limit looser than Europe's, which sits at 4? Yes, and that's a fair thing to want fixed. But aflatoxin is not why your jar says spread. Don't let a real trace contaminant distract you from the plain sight swap on the front of the label. One is a rounding error the system mostly handles. The other is a word game aimed straight at your trust. So who passed? 3 jars. And the twist you already feel coming. The winners aren't the fanciest, the priciest, or the ones shouting natural. They're the ones that had nothing to shout, because there was nothing to hide. The purest of them all is Crazy Richard's, and its ingredient list is a single word: peanuts. That's it, 100%. No salt, no sugar, no oil, no stabilizer. Which means yes, you'll have to stir it, and yes, the oil floats on top, and now you know that's the point. It's the jar that earns the words the loudest by using the fewest. Then Costco's Kirkland Signature Organic. Valencia peanuts and a little sea salt, sold by the tub for less per ounce than half the sugared name brands on this list. And Trader Joe's Organic, peanuts and salt, made in Georgia, and if it separates in your pantry, that's the label telling the truth. Notice what these three have in common, and what they don't. Not one of them leans on the word natural. Not one of them needed to. When the jar genuinely is 90%, 100% peanuts, it doesn't have to borrow a comforting adjective from the marketing department. It just prints the ingredient and lets the ingredient do the talking. The louder a jar sells you the feeling of health, the more it's usually covering for. The quiet jars had nothing to cover. And the quietest winner of all isn't even a brand. It's the sibling hiding on the same shelf as the losers. Kroger Natural, Smucker's Natural, Teddy. The plain jar, 2 feet from the sugared one, in the same store that sold you number 6, usually for a few cents more. The real thing was never far away. It was just never the one at eye level. The winner isn't a better brand. It's the jar that hid the least. And the whole game was betting you'd never turn it over. So you can read the confession now, all 4 words. Standard of identity, the law that decides what peanut butter is even allowed to mean. Hydrogenated, the stabilizer the rule lets them hide behind. Palm oil, the one it doesn't, the tell that gives a spread away. And spread, the 6-letter verdict they print as small as the law allows. Natural is an adjective. Spread is a verdict. Now go check your own jar. Turn it over, find the legal name, and tell me in the comments. Did yours say peanut butter, or did it say spread? I read every single one. And do me a favor. Send this to the person in your house who keeps buying the natural one because they think it's the healthy choice. They're the one holding the jar that needs turning over, because the front was always the brand. The back was always the truth. And you'll never walk this aisle blind again.